Among the three famous poems by Nissim Izakiel on Indianism, namely The Politician, Miss Goodbye Party for Miss T.S. Pushpa, and The Professor. The Professor is the most interesting one. It's a very cleverly written poem. We may laugh at every line because it's a good collection of all the Indianisms that we see, that we hear actually. Plus, it shows us a lot about Indian culture, how curious we are about other people's lives, which is quite different from the way people interact in other countries. Here, when we see a person, the first thing that comes to our mind is this person married? Does he have children? How many? What do they do? We get into other people's personal lives quite a lot, which is considered quite unmannerly in other countries. So we have this professor. It's a dramatic monologue. A professor meets one of his old students, and the professor thinks that the student may remember him, but the student doesn't remember him. The student has no clue who this old man is. So our Professor Seth, he asks him, "Do you remember me? I taught you geography. You were very thin." The professor remembers among thousands of students he has taught. The professor remembers this student. Probably he remembers all of them. The professor would have taught thousands of them. But how many professors has a student seen and the student doesn't remember the professor? Even after the professor gives him several clues, the student is quite at a loss to recall the professor. Now, even though it is a very funny poem, it also has its pathos. It's a sad story of a professor. First of all, he talks about his life. He says that two of his children are managers. One is a bank manager, the other is a sales manager. But both are managers. He is very happy about it, that he can call his children managers. He has a third son, and he says, he's not doing very well. Every family must have its black sheep. So one of them didn't do well. And the professor seemed to say that the other two did very well, but we know that only one of them is in a good position, that of a bank manager. The other is a sales manager, and we may not think so highly of a sales manager. And the other two are girls, Sarla and Tharla. They are married, and about them also the professor is kind of vainglorious about them. He thinks that they also married good earning husbands because each of them has a car. Now the professor talks about his health. His wife is dead and he doesn't go out much. He says he doesn't have diabetes or pressure or heart problems. He seemed to be very proud of this, that he doesn't have these diseases. But these diseases are also called rich man's diseases, and the poor man cannot afford to have these diseases. He's so poor. So when we look at the poem and read between the lines, we find that it's a sad story of a retired professor. It's not something that we should laugh at. A professor, a member of the teachers community, supposed to be a great pillar of the society, got retired when he was 55, and his students don't remember him. At least one of his children didn't do well, and none of them followed him into academics, and he is living a very lonely life, rarely goes out, and when finally he invites a student, he tells a student that his house is behind someone else's house. It's not facing the street. All this is told to a student who has made it big in his life and still doesn't remember one of the causes that made him make it big in life. Read between the lines and look for the tragic elements in the life of a professor. The poet himself was a professor. He was an English professor. If you look at this poem in this way, you'll stop smiling, you'll stop laughing, and you will feel the sorrowful element, the element of sorrow involved in this poem.